Good evening, everyone. This is Sheba from FFE. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the fifth session in our ongoing technical series. Today, we explore a foundational topic in software development, test cases. We are excited to be joined by an inspiring leader from the tech industry, Ms. Shruthi, Program Manager at SAP Labs India Private Limited. Ms. Shruthi brings a dynamic blend of project leadership and strategic foresight and product innovation. At SAP, she heads the Field Service Management product and plays a pivotal role in aligning engineering efforts with customer needs and product direction. With her certification in PMP and ACP, she has spearheaded a range of high impact initiatives from partner enablement to leadership engagement that have strengthened cross functional synergy across teams. Known for her collaborative spirit and focus on delivering outcomes, Shruthi consistently bridges the gap between technical execution and business value. Today, she will be shedding light on test cases, not just as a QA practice, but as a tool for building reliable, scalable software.
First of all, a very warm welcome to all of you. And thank you for such a good introduction of myself, actually. Thank you, thanks. And welcome to all the colleagues who are joined here. Welcome to all the students who are joining here to understand very important, but a very small, when it is described as a test case, it gives the thing that it's a very small part of the software development. But today we'll see how that very small cornerstone can actually play a pivotal role in the software development. So let me share my screen to a few slides that I have prepared. Just a second. Could you please help me where the share is over here? Yes. Host has disabled attendees. Okay.
Are you able to share, Shruthi?
No, the host
Okay.
has disabled.
Yeah. Sheba, can you please make Shruthi co-host? Shiva?
Or can I send you the slides? Can you share it from your side?
Yeah, sure. Shiva, can you just make... Yeah, Shruthi, you're the co-host now.
Super. Just a second. Yes. Super. And I hope you're able to see the screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not a full screen.
Yes, it's just the slides I would wish to present here, and it's a very simple. It's a very because let me start off the thing with saying that in the software development, as you have already seen as a part of the series, that this is, I think, fourth or fifth session in the part of the software development series. In software development, if you see, the most important part of that is quality assurance. And when it comes to quality, test cases are one of the most pivotal thing that you can think of. And so we come to the today's session as to how we understand test cases and how in reference to it understand quality assurance. So let me see what's there in as part of today's agenda. We'll have a quick introduction on the testing and test cases, and we'll understand what a test case is and what an anatomy of a test case should be, and real life example of a login page, if this thing allows us to do it, and why test case matters, and what are the different types of test cases that you can actually write in software development. And we'll have a very short and fun quiz at the end of it, and we'll end it with a recap and closing statements. Now, to begin off with, just a second. Yes, I'll just, yeah, coming to what is exactly software testing in the first place. So let's dive into the world of quality assurance and test cases too.
Shruti, I'm so sorry to cut you, but can we have a full screen of this? Students cannot... I mean,
you can just put it on the presentation mode.
Yeah, on the presentation
able to read.
Yes, that's
it's fine.
This is sufficient. Just a second.
Yes.
Okay. Give me 2 minutes. Just a second. I think I this here. this. You need the presentation mode because it covers off all the screens for me, and hence I'm just looking at. Okay, nonetheless, give me just 2 seconds over here. Is this visible enough?
Yeah, this is good, Shruti.
This is good, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because I do need another screen where I have to things with the quiz, because I do need those questions when I ask for the students. Okay.
No worries. This is good. Yes.
Yeah. Quickly as to where we what we understand by software testing. Now, in software engineering, quality assurance is one of the most important processes that a professional can manage. Now, what encompasses quality assurance is each and every step of the developmental process done with quality. So it does not start. Usually the understanding is when do we test, when we develop, and then we test. That is not the actual place of quality assurance to even begin with. Quality assurance actually begins by when you even collect the requirements from the our customers to understand how the market is, and quality assurance begins from there. And once we have everything in place, and when we get the software development kick-started, and then we call it as software testing, because there is a software live in the test system in order for us to test. So that's where test cases also come into process. Now, what exactly is software testing? This is something that the software we have to do in order to make sure that the software does what it is intended to do. That is, if it is, we do have a aim for the test case that after these steps, this is the intended result. So we do check whether is the software delivering what it is intended to do in the end. And also we do software testing to find bugs. That is, the intention of the intended result is there, but are we also getting something more out of it, or is it leading us to a path which it should not ideally lead the end user customer to? So this is also tested, which in other words is bug finding and bug fixing. And when you also talk about software testing, there are mainly two modes of it. One is manual and one is automated. Very simple explanation is manual is when you do it by the person, that is the manual tester does in person, logs into the system, logs into the particular software, and does the required steps by hand. And when you say automated, there are various amount of tools available in the market, and you can automate the particular system in order to do the steps where you have created the script for, and that does in your stead. There is a strong case told that there should be a healthy balance between how many of these test cases should be manual and how many of them should be automated. You cannot have 100% manual test case only to say that, okay, every time a person will go into the system to test whether it's manually testable, or you cannot say, I want everything to be automated, because there are certain cornerstone test cases, there are certain integration test cases, which still pose a huge amount of effort for the automation testers in order to do that, rather than manual tester will do it in seconds. So there is a healthy balance between both manual and automated testing. Now, coming to what exactly is a test case. A test case, in very simple words, is a simple document written in order to understand what is the step-by-step procedure in order to test the particular feature or a system or an entire software that we are talking about. So it is a simple document, and this document can have various templates. If you are writing a very small unit of feature testing, then it will be called as a feature test case. If it caters to a small piece of code that you're going to test, that is called as a unit level test case. And if you're testing it as a part of integrating 2 or 3 features together, that is called as an integration test case. So at what depth that you would like to go, that complex or that bigger the test case gets. So, and it also, as I mentioned over here, what to test, how to test, and what to expect out of this test case is the main ingredients that gets into the test case. Now, let's go into understand what exactly a test case actually has in itself. You can say the usual or the 99% of all the test cases written in software development has these in it. The first is a test case ID. A test case ID is nothing but a uniquely identifiable ID for that document where you have specified a particular list of steps that needs to be executed. That has to be unique to that particular document. And these together forms a test case architecture document, which again forms as a scenario. So test case ID is a uniquely distinguishable identity for that particular document. Test scenario. Test scenario is something there where you as a tester will define that my test begins from this step and ends at that particular step. That is your test scenario. There might be steps before where you start, there might be even steps after you finish, but the concentration of that particular test is between those two steps, and that is defined as a test scenario. How big you define the scenario makes how long the test case actually goes. Okay, and then preconditions. You should also specify in that particular document what are the preconditions that you are taking into consideration to be there by default before you start testing that particular software. Usually, most of the cases, the testers miss this particular step. In order to have a successful test, precondition is the most important. To say, even though it is by default understood by most of the people who touch that and work on that software, it is adamantly important that you invariably write the preconditions, even though it is by default, saying that this browser, this login, this is the aspect, even the aspect ratio is mentioned in the UI test cases. So preconditions is very important to be written. And then comes the actual body, that is the test steps. What are the various steps that you would wish to cover in that particular test case? Usually it begins for example of if you can say log into a Facebook account. The first step would be to launch it in any browser. If the test case specifies a particular browser like a Chrome or a Firefox, you specify that yes, launch Firefox browser and then log in with this URL, and that would be your first step. So each click, each action that is taken up by the end user is a test step. Here also, many testers usually assume that launch a URL is a known thing and probably any browser would do, but there are certain conditions that probably they get launched at a particular VPN configurations. Certain browsers do not handle certain software launches, and so all this becomes also a part of the preconditions to make sure that the first step requires these preconditions, and then you write each step for. And then the next one is the expected result. So in the test case, you ideally write this step will get you this result, and this is the expected result that you're supposed to get. And that is actually a screenshot also. In most of the UI test cases, we actually even take a screenshot to make sure that this is exactly how the screen should look like, and any deviation from the screen is not an expected result. So expected result is the one that will tell you whether the test case is green or red, that is, has it passed or failed. So the next one is the actual result, where you compare the expected result to the result that you have actually got when you are testing it in the actual software. After you do that, then you put the status as pass or fail. Here we say that if the expected result is equal to the actual result, the test case is pass. And if it's not, it's a fail. Sometimes, or in some of the very robustly built software, we do have a negative test case also, where we say by doing this particular step, your expected result should end in a 404 error, or it should end with a error message getting displayed on the screen saying that this is not a designated step to be followed. So in those cases, Failing is an expected result, and that is the required result to be there. So those is the actual status of pass. So those are the negative test cases, which we also check that if the user does the deviates from the intended steps, he should be stopped at a particular step to say that yes, this is the thing, and kindly retrace your steps back to this particular screen or this URL and start from there. So these are the main anatomy of a test case, usually written. Many complex scenarios will have much more written into a test case than just these. So these are the most basic to be mandatory fields that has to be there as part of the test case. Now let's move on to a login page. This is, as I also mentioned in the example, a test case with just a login as a test case. So what do you have over here? We have a precondition that a user has a valid username and a password to even begin with. So this forms a part of the preconditions. And also, preconditions can also say that this is the browser that is intended, this is the URL that you need to launch with, all these things. And come to the steps, you would say open the login page, and then you enter the username, you enter the password, and you click login. And then you see the intended result. Either the user should land into the dashboard of that particular software, or probably if it's a wrong username or a wrong password, it should display you a toast message saying that username or password is incorrect, that has been entered by the user. So this is the usual example that is given across for a login page test. And coming to why are these test cases so important? Why are we even writing? In the current age where we are dealing with softwares which are amazingly UI driven, that we are making, the position or the existence of a test case is now actually questioned by many of the institutions. Like, why are we even spending time in order to write a document which is so intuitive to the user that he can look at and understand as to why should we even do it? Many teams erroneously also think that our software is so UI driven that we don't need to write anything down. A user, even a completely stranger user comes into the software, he's able to do the steps even before it has been prompted him to do that. But test cases is a very important part of our software development. This is why do we need a standardized testing? That is to say that during the requirements gathering and the development process of that software, we did have certain assumptions in mind. We did have certain backlogs in mind, and we do need the software to run in a particular way. And hence, test of these is documented in those software test cases. Also, another reason is it saves time and reduces chaos. This usually happens when the intended tester leaves the team, or intended main architect, or the one who is actually defined the requirements for that particular software is no longer with the team. That time, these test cases form the basis of what was the understanding of how that particular piece of feature or how that software should have worked in that particular scenario. So that is another very important document from the team's perspective that will form as a basis for understanding. And then it helps and fixes bugs early. That is because every time a new batch of software is released into the market, we should make sure that the test cases that have been previously written still hold good, still will make sense in order to execute them. So these test cases will also help you to make sure that there are no newly introduced bugs into the software with the newer versions. And this particular thing is called as regression testing, what I'm actually giving example for. So these help in finding and fixing bugs in a very early stages. So this makes the teamwork easier, and it definitely builds on the collaboration between developers and testers. Any doubts till here, guys? I'm sorry, I do not have the Q&A. Okay, I could.
There are a couple of two questions which I see.
Okay.
Kirti says, ma'am, why most of the test cases are hidden?
Okay. Okay. One quick to host and the thing. Do I take the questions now, or shall we take the questions at the end of the thing, end of the presentation?
Whatever is okay.
Okay. Then for the
You can
sake of
take
the
it towards the end as well. I mean,
end,
whatever.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sure. Then we'll keep
Students, in the meanwhile, you have questions, please keep posting in the Q&A box, and towards the end, then we'll take the questions.
Will do. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Then we'll go for the next slide. That is types of test cases. Now, what we usually, what the example that I just now gave of a login page, that is a very simple, a very straightforward feature of a software, and that is the example that I gave. But along with these, there are various types of test cases that are written for a single piece of software or even a single piece of feature that is pushed into the software. Now, what are these? As I previously mentioned, one is a positive test case. That is the way the software is intended to work. That is the main positive test cases. Negative is to make sure that any other clicks on that particular screen or any other path that a user can possibly take in that software should not lead to any outage of that particular software, or he should not be led into another screen which is where the data is irrecoverable, or it should not lead to any screens where the data is being lost by the user. So these form the negative test cases. And there are boundary test cases too. When a particular user enters, for example, in a bank software, you enter the amount to be transferred from one account to another, there is a boundary value which can handle on a per day transactions. So there is a boundary case written on that particular field where upon you exceeding that boundary limit, it will throw you an error saying that kindly enter the value which is less than that. So these found of a sort of boundary cases are also written for very important fields included into the software, and each features also. UI test cases. These are particularly written in order to make the software more UI pleasing. That is, even though the software does what it intends to do, it has to be pleasing to the eyes. It has to be aesthetic looking. It should be soft on the eyes, to say that it has to be pastel colored, and it should not be of contrastic colored, so that the user feels vividly finding, trying to find where the hidden keys are there, and where these buttons are located and all these. So UI test cases are increasingly becoming important in a world where most of the software is UI driven and intuitive to the user. He should be able to figure out these steps by just having a look into the UI layout. So UI test cases cater to those cases. And then performance test cases. Performance test cases are particularly written for certain performance test tools that we already have. In SAP, at least, we use a performance tool called Super, which takes in single user performance testing, and also multi-user performance we can do a testing on if 10,000 users log into the same URL at one point of time, then is the server able to handle the load? Is the server able to perform all the 10,000 users clicks, APIs at the single go? So these test cases will make sure that all the load hits on the DB is able to perform in the right way. And every time the screen should be loaded, or the intended step should be completed within the given time frame of 3 seconds. So that also is being tested in the performance test case. Among here, the last one is accessibility. When I say what is an accessibility test case, now every time we do not have a user who is like you and me, who are visually capable of seeing the screen, and who do have two very easily functional hands and is able to use a keyboard in order to do that. Very much of the times our users are either partially blind, or they do not have access to complete keyboard layout and all these things. So in those cases, we do have accessibility test cases which make sure that our software is accessible to such users also. Where we do have screen readers for people who are partially blind or completely blind, so that they get to understand what is displayed on that screen. And then we do also have inbuilt UI technology put into the browser, so that they increase the UI font of a particular field or a particular section of the screen, so that if the person wants to zoom in and understand what is written in those things, he can do so. So this comes under the accessibility test cases. There are many more other types of which I could not, I did not intend to include here, but there are many more types of test cases also. These are the basic ones that I intended to share with you. So yeah, after this we hit the summary. So before that, I would also try to give you a small example um, about how important this particular software testing is in real life scenarios. You may be wondering as to if test cases are not done, or is assumed that, okay, this is a very small thing and I might not be intended to do that. I'll give you an example. In a real world, I will be actually interested to share it with you. That is in back in 1999, there was a Mars orbiter launched by NASA, which happened to be almost worth $125 million back then. That is 25 years back. This was called as a Mars climate orbiter, which was sent to Mars in order to understand what's the climate on the lower and upper layers of atmosphere on the Mars. Now, in the development of this thing, there were two teams who were working in collaboration, and one of those teams used the pound system. That is the unit that was used to measure the thrustal output of that Mars robot was pound seconds, whereas the other development team used metric system, that is the Newton per seconds. Now, this is a very, very small mistake, or it's not a mistake in case, it's a small unit change in which those two teams worked. But when the tester has to calculate the thrust output of these two development teams, they did not consider a very small thing such as a unit that has been tested. That is, the unit should be the same between the two teams. And what was the result of this? That the entire spacecraft lost its balance, but probably just 15 to 16 seconds after launch, and it exploded. And when they had the investigation started up, and when they actually tested, and then they got to know that the test for consistency of those thrustal outputs did not have the same units that they had to consider. So I think you'll have many more such examples where a very small intended test case being failed will result in a very huge error. I'll end my talk with one other example that happened pretty recently. That is in 2020. There was a huge blunder done by one of the Citibank employees when he accidentally transferred $900 million instead of a very small amount, because the field in which he has to actually enter the amount was very small, and he could not distinguish as to how many zeros he had entered into the field. Just a small issue of a UI field being not able to be displayed completely to a user, created such a huge blunder. And even if you read into the impact of this particular blunder, more than $500 million still remains unrecovered, because the bank rules that the internet payment was made in full, and the system flagged it as a complete payment. So you cannot recover back it, because it is a complete positive intended payment done in full. So very small test case blunders of these type can result in a huge catastrophe of softwares. So with this, I will stop my continuous talk and let me get into what the questions are.
Yes, Shruti. So we have
Yes.
questions from the chat
Okay.
box
Mhm.
and the Q&A box. Yeah, so
Yes.
one student, she has asked like why most of the test cases are hidden.
I would very strongly say it's as negative. No, test cases ideally should not be hidden in any form. The most, if at least I can give an example where SAP is involved because I've been working here. Every employee, every SAP employee has access to every team's test cases, not just unit level. Every level of test cases is kept in a central system, and this access is by default to everybody. Every employee has access to it. So if you ask me, is it hidden? No. If there is a reason why they have kept it as hidden, that is their decision. But none of the test cases that are tested and gets released in a actual SAP release will not be hidden. Anyone can open it and see and check it. Yes. In fact, they are accessible even to our customers, let alone to just employees. Yes.
Yeah. So next question is from Nisha. So test cases need preconditions. Do all test cases needs preconditions?
For this, I would say yes, because every test will start with a precondition in mind. That is, even for a, just as I told you, even for a simple feature like log into a Facebook or log into even a wiki page, we assume that the user has the URL. We assume that user has a username and a particular password. So even as a simple step, which as I mentioned, certain steps are assumed that they know by the user. So it is always better in order to list these preconditions in the test case rather than assuming that, okay, the user already knows this step and let me just skip it and think. It comes, yeah. Every test case has a preconditions.
Yeah. So the next is how to get edge test cases passed.
Um, yes, when you say edge test cases, they are nothing but boundary value test cases. It should be like, for example, the one that I just gave you the example of a Citibank, transfer error. For such a thing, you do a transfer of, you first begin the test case as a negative, where you transfer -1, and you see whether the system drops you in a negative error message saying that yes, negative amounts cannot be transferred. And then you come to the put in 0, where you check from where the are you able to transfer 0, and then again the system should give you an error saying that no, 0 cannot be transferred. And then you come to 1 and upper limit. And when you come to the upper limit, that maybe if that field has an upper limit of $100 only to be transferred, you put in 101 and check whether it hits you. So boundary level conditions are checked so that all the boundary conditions, negative and positive, are both checked in that way. Yeah.
What happens if the user tries to log in too many times in test case? Is that relevant?
I didn't get the, sorry, I'm really sorry, I didn't get the question.
So how are the performance test cases done?
Yes, very good. Performance test cases are a little special test cases where we say if it is a single user performance test case, that is the standard benchmark where you start your performance testing for a particular software. There you say that this particular tenant or the system in which it has been launched has only your user logged into it, to make sure that there is no sharing of resources with another user. So we make sure that the tenant is having no other user apart from the performance test case user. You log in, you do all the relevant steps. In a performance test case, the steps are given priorities also. Like a login page, the username entering is a medium priority performance case, where you enter it and hit an enter. The prompt should come to the password field. That is not a very complex step, so that's a very easy step. So that should happen less than a second. So that's a performance standard that we go to. And when you enter the password and when you hit the login, that is a complex, because once you hit the login, the API takes you from the software and hits the DB, and hits and then searches for that particular username and matches it with your inbuilt password and then gives you the result. So this particular step is a complex because for example, I'll take another thing as Facebook. When you hit a login page, it has to check how many other systems have you got this login. It has to also check, have you changed the login information in any of these other devices? And is this the correct password for it? And has there been any erroneous multiple logins for the same thing in any other device? So all this will form the next step. So this is a single user performance. And when you have to do multiple user, that's when load testing also gets into account, where you have multiple users. 10,000 is a usual number that we start with. You can even up to go to 1 million user hits at a single time on that same load. That will tell you how the system is behaving when it has a concurrent hit on the DB of so many users. So it differs on what performance tool you're currently using. So that's the thing for performance.
Yeah. So another question, ma'am. So when I solve CP or DSA questions, I think my logic is correct, but still get wrong, especially on edge cases. Please tell me, how can I solve this?
Could you please say what a CP and DSA are? I'm very sorry with these acronyms.
The students have written.
Yeah.
So
Please,
maybe
we'll circle back to this question when we have the acronym. Yes.
Yes. So how do you prioritize test cases? So
Perfect.
this
Yes.
other
Yes.
question.
Yes. How do you prioritize? Very important, because not all test cases are mission critical. We have to write or prioritize test cases which are usually, in my experience, integration test cases takes the highest priority. That is because here we are trying to make sure that two different parts of the software, two different features are talking to each other and exchanging data between them, or two different softwares in the system are exchanging data. So these test cases, in my view, takes the highest priority. If they work, I think the rest of the things would work in the case. And then the next priority would be the internal feature testing test cases, which make sure that the most used features of the users are being tested. Login, that definitely is one of them. Login should work. If the login fails, then nothing else is there. So these features come into the next thing, and it depends on mainly what type of software you're trying to test, and it depends on that. For financial related softwares, the, as I mentioned, boundary values and the validity of those entry points that we write is the highest prioritized test cases. We should not make an error in those steps. Rest is still okay. Like UI, a particular button is still not visible, that is still doable. But the field in which we enter the amount should not fail, or rather that should not give you any error. So those depends on the software thing. Yes.
Yeah, so the same student, ma'am, for CP, he has mentioned competitive programming, and for DSA, he has mentioned as data structure algorithm.
Okay.
So
I'll just have to
the
go
login,
back.
the logic is correct, but still getting wrong, especially on edge cases for this CP and DSA.
Yes. There are certain scenarios where the logic does hit it correct, but the test case still fails. This is a very cornerstone that we have seen. Just as I mentioned, for the Citibank's account software also, they would have done the test casing. It's not that the software is so so idiotically written that they would not have tested it. They would have. There are other things that get into the system, like for example, that field is tested for the boundary values, but would not have been tested thoroughly for the UI, because that field, though behaves correctly, is not visible to the user in the right way that he's intending to use it. So probably there are other things that get into the testing where the logic still works, but the intended result does not come up as thing. It's a complex way in how you have to write it, and certain things we have to live with them. Yes.
Yeah. So one more student. So he have asked, like, what's the scope of testing jobs in future?
I would say it's too much. I cannot stress on the importance. This actually comes up pretty much in most of my conversations with colleagues who are joining the software industry, and they downgrade this particular job as such that I'm starting as a tester, I'm starting as a manual thing, or I'm starting as an automation tester. It's a very small thing when you compare it as I'm joining as a developer. No, absolutely not. I can give you an example of the current structure of Microsoft or even Apple for that matter. Each developer, believe it or not, has 4 to 5 testers to test his software. It's that ratio. Hence, you will find so many less bugs and so robust softwares coming out of those systems. Even in SAP, if you ask me, every team literally has 2 or more number of software, quality assurance colleagues working in order to make sure that it's of that thing. So, absolutely, testing jobs are nowhere to be going. They will remain, or rather, they will flourish in a much different way because there are so many different ways of development that is coming up. So there will be hundreds of different ways to test those also. So testing jobs are here to stay. Testing jobs are here to more flourish more, rather, I can say.
Yes, maybe we can take 2 to 3 questions, ma'am. Will that be
Yes, yes, definitely. I'll hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the difference between edge test case and test case?
Edge test case targets a particular field or a particular input value only. Those test cases are probably come as bunch of test cases put into one test suite that we actually call it as. So there we try to test every input value that can be done by the user, and we write test cases for those things. Now, when you say just a test case, that is a unit level test case. That can be for a feature, that can be for a screen, that can be for a particular scenario. It can be anything. But when you actually say it's an edge test case or it's a boundary test case, there it is drilling down to a particular entry, to a particular field only on that particular screen only. So all those things come up when you say it as an edge case.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So what happens when the user enters a search term that returns no results?
What happens when a user enters a search term and return
no results?
Okay. Usually when you on a search engine, when you hit something and you get no results, it's invariably in software terms, we say that the DB hit returned null. That is, it's tried to search for that particular term, and in all the various search algorithms that has been inbuilt into that thing resulted in a no hit scenario, and hence you get a null result. At least in software terms, this is a thing. So a test case, if you want also to be written in such a way that you enter this and you're supposed to get a 0 hit, will be of such things only. Like, for example, in Google, you go and write a string of alphanumeric gibberish. You will definitely get a null result hit, and it will in fact suggest you nowadays with the inbuilt of AI over there, it will suggest you, are you intending to search this? So those prompts have now come up. Apart from that, it will tell you that it has been 0 hits. Yes.
Yeah, this is the last question for the session. So can one test case test multiple things, or we always need specific?
No, definitely one test case can test multiple features also. Those are called as I mentioned, integration test cases will test a lot of things collectively than the individual test cases. F- uh, like they do have the workings of one side of the software and the workings of the second side, and they also test or make sure that the steps which are intended for both of these to integrate and work and give you the right result are also mentioned in those test cases. So definitely integration test cases have a lot more steps, and they do test a lot other features than a simple test case actually does. So yes, no, it is there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Shruthi, for an insightful and thought-provoking session on test cases. The practical takeaways and examples you shared will surely stay with our scholars as they grow in their technical journey. So we sincerely appreciate the time, preparation, and thought you dedicated to in making this session valuable and relatable.
Anytime.
A special thanks as well as to the SAP team, FFE family, and to all the scholars
Anytime.
for your enthusiastic involvement and engagement throughout.